I jolted awake to an unsettling noise, or rather, the absence of noise. It wasn't the usual calm of chirping birds greeting the dawn. It was a chilling, something is terribly wrong kind of silence. My private lake, normally a sparkling gem under the morning sun, looked like it had been ripped from a nightmare. The once pristine water had turned a murky, fluorescent green, bubbling ominously. A sharp, chemical stench assaulted my senses, strong enough to make my eyes sting. Then I saw them, dozens of fish, lifeless, floating belly up on the surface. A cold dread sank into my gut as the reality hit me. Someone had poisoned my lake. I stumbled down to the shore, my mind struggling to process the scene. The water hissed and fizzed at the edges, the grass yellowing wherever it made contact. This wasn't a freak accident. Someone had deliberately dumped something toxic here. My thoughts raced, but one name kept surfacing: Linda Grayson. She was the only person in the neighborhood unhinged enough to pull this off. Linda was the unofficial tyrant of our homeowners association, though most of us just called her the HOA overlord. With her perpetually sour expression, stiff brunette bob, and a voice that could strip wallpaper, she'd been a thorn in my side ever since she realized my property, and the lake behind it, fell outside her precious HOA control. That little detail drove her up the wall. For months, she'd been on a crusade to force me to drain the lake, claiming it lured undesirable wildlife or ruined the neighborhood's aesthetic harmony. Once, she even argued it was a safety risk because someone might stumble into it. I'd laughed her off then, but now, staring at the devastation, the humor was gone. Fury propelled me back inside, my pulse hammering. I needed evidence. Thankfully, I'd installed security cameras around my property a while back, mainly to monitor my shed. I pulled up the footage from the previous night and scrubbed through it. At exactly 2:47 a.m., there she was, Linda, clad in her signature lavender sweater and beige slacks, lugging huge industrial jugs from her SUV. She fumbled with their weight, nearly tripping as she hauled them to the lake's edge. I watched, stunned, as she unscrewed the caps and dumped their contents into the water, glancing around nervously like a bad movie villain. When she finished, she wiped her hands on her pants, smirked at her handiwork, and sauntered back to her car. I replayed it, half expecting it to be a hallucination, but no, it was crystal clear in high definition. Linda had poisoned my lake with a smugness that suggested she thought she'd done us all a favor. Rage and disbelief churned inside me. Who does this? What kind of person wakes up and decides to commit a felony over a grudge against a lake? I clenched my fists, weighing my options. Confronting her would be pointless. She'd deny it, spin some sob story. No, I needed something ironclad. Then it clicked: the Environmental Protection Agency. If anyone took illegal dumping seriously, it was the EPA. Given the lake's condition, Linda hadn't just tossed in some garden pesticide. This was heavy-duty stuff. I grabbed my phone, found their emergency hotline, and dialed. A voice picked up instantly. EPA Enforcement Division, what's your emergency? I took a steadying breath. Yeah, hi. I think my neighbor just committed an environmental crime. A pause. Can you clarify, sir? Oh, I can do better. I've got video proof. It's bad. I spilled everything. Linda's sneaking onto my land, dumping unknown chemicals, the toxic aftermath. I described the water's eerie glow, the dead fish, the noxious fumes. The agent's furious typing filled the silence. This is serious, they said finally. We're sending a field team to your location. Don't touch or move anything. I grinned. Trust me, I wouldn't dare. Hanging up, I leaned back, exhaling. This was going to be epic. Linda had spent years terrorizing the neighborhood, fining people for minor infractions, demanding repaints over faded trim. But this time, she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She wasn't facing an HOA slap on the wrist now. She was up against the feds. I spent the morning backing up the footage in multiple places, even emailing a copy to my lawyer for good measure. By noon, heavy vehicles rumbled up my driveway. Peering out, I saw two black SUVs with government plates. EPA agents in crisp suits stepped out, their expressions grim as they unloaded testing kits and equipment. Showtime. The lead agent, a tall guy named Agent Carter with a no-nonsense vibe, introduced himself from the EPA's Enforcement Division. I led them to the shore, Where the lake still simmered with that sickly green hue, the chemicals stink thicker than ever. They got to work, vials dipped into the water, pH testers buzzing, notes scribbled on clipboards. One agent swirled a sample in a vial, holding it up to the light with a frown. "This isn't just herbicide," he muttered, his tone a mix of alarm and disbelief. "This is industrial-grade contamination, stuff civilians shouldn't even have access to." My smirk faltered. "What's that mean?" Carter stood, brushing off his knees. "It means whoever did this didn't just break a local rule. They violated federal environmental laws. This could be ecological sabotage." My stomach flipped with glee. Linda was toast. Then I spotted her, across the street, peeking from behind her manicured hedge, clutching a mug with white-knuckled hands. Her face was a mask of shock. I locked eyes with her and raised my coffee mug in a mock toast. She went pale, clearly realizing this wasn't her usual petty game anymore. But Linda wasn't one to slink away quietly. Instead, she stormed over, sweater flapping, her voice shrill. "What's going on here? Why are government agents on private property?" Carter barely glanced at her. "EPA business, ma'am. This is an active environmental crime scene." She let out a fake laugh, too high-pitched to hide her panic. "Oh, come on. It's just a little weed killer. I was helping. That lake's an eyesore." That did it. The agents turned to her in sync, their calm facades cracking. Carter flipped open his clipboard. "Ma'am, are you admitting to dumping chemicals into this lake?" Linda froze, then backpedaled. "Well, it's not harmful. Everyone wanted it gone. I was doing a favor." Carter scribbled, unfazed. "Are you aware you violated the Clean Water Act? Contaminating a water source, even a private one, is a federal offense. These chemicals are hazardous under EPA regulations." Linda's bravado crumbled. "Hold on. I cut in, grinning. Don't worry, Linda. I've got security footage of your midnight dump. Send it to my lawyer, too, just in case you try to wiggle out." Her jaw dropped, then flapped uselessly. Carter tapped his tablet, pulling up the video I'd sent earlier. There she was, pouring gallons of poison into my lake like a cartoon crook. Her face went white. This is out of context," she squeaked. Carter sighed. "Ma'am, I'll need you to come with us for questioning." Panic set in. "You can't do this. I have rights. I'm the HOA president." Carter didn't flinch. "You have the right to a lawyer, but you're facing fines, possible criminal charges, and maybe mandatory cleanup if it's bad enough." Linda started hyperventilating. "You can't arrest me over water. He's exaggerating. Look at him, smirking." She pointed at me, but I just shrugged. "Hey, Linda, remember finding folks for uneven hedges? Karma's a beaut." The agents led her to the SUVs, and for once, she wasn't in charge. She'd ruled the neighborhood like a despot, but now she'd face real consequences. Word spread like wildfire. By evening, the emergency HOA meeting was packed. People who never showed up now crammed in, buzzing with excitement. Linda's absence left the board floundering. The vice president, a jittery guy named Paul who'd always cowered under her, tried to take charge. "We need to address MS. Grayson's situation," he stammered. "Given recent events, we should vote on her presidency." Someone yelled, "Boot her out." The room roared in agreement. Paul flailed for control, but the vote was swift. Linda was ousted in 10 minutes flat. Cheers erupted. I watched from the back, sipping water, savoring the chaos. She'd made enemies for years. Now they reveled in her fall. 2 days later, the EPA confirmed the chemicals were hazardous waste. Cleanup would take weeks, and Linda was personally liable. No HOA to bail her out. When she slunk home, she looked haggard, her smugness replaced by defeat. She glared at me from across the street, but said nothing. A week later, EPA workers arrived for the cleanup and handed her a clipboard. "Per your settlement, you'll assist in remediation," one said. "Supervised, non-negotiable." I nearly spat out my coffee. Linda, the queen of petty fines, was now forced to scoop toxic muck from my lake. She took the gloves and suit, muttering curses, and got to work under watchful eyes. I couldn't resist snapping a few pics and a video. Nothing intrusive, just history in the making. I posted a clip online. HOA Linda cleans up her mess. It blew up. Comments called her Lake Slayer and HOA Tyrant. Memes exploded. She tried playing victim, but no one bought it. The lake healed over weeks, but her reputation didn't. The HOA ditched her draconian rules, and the neighborhood breathed freer. Then, one day, a for sale sign popped up on her lawn. Soon after, a moving truck came, and Linda left, silently, angrily, defeated. Neighbors waved her off with smug grins. I stood by my restored lake, basking in the quiet victory. Justice tasted sweet.